I've got to get to him now. Let me pass.
We'll send for him. Stay here.
Wait.
Did I hear that correctly? Is that what you were called?
Yeah.
Is that true?
You want to take a guess? Corruption runs rampant. I don't want anything to do with that. I just want the truth.
Coffee took a little longer to get off the pot than I thought it was going to. Hello, everyone. We're having a pathetically short stream today, and I wanted to warn you. I have to go do orientation day with my kids at school today. I'm very excited. But more to the point, I'm going to have to go in like a very ridiculously short amount of time. So we're just going to bang out a couple of chapters, and then I'm going to go. Good morning, Nix. Good morning, Lady Temeraire. Good morning, Bodegazilla. Praise the fan. Oh, thank you, Bodegazilla. That means a lot. I don't know. I don't have clever answers for this right now. It's very early and I'm very tired. Okay. Chapter 23. The beginning of the end. Oris tried to prepare herself for the worst. The door kicked in, the windows smashed, blood and bodies everywhere. But then they reached the orphanage. The building looked untouched. There were no signs of damage or violence. Oris threw the front door open and stormed into the entry hall. Flip and Sylvan ran in on either side of her. Weapons drawn and Flip's eyes aglow. The place looked empty, but after a moment the attendant, Hyla, came scurrying around the corner, drawn by the noise. Her eyes were wide, and as she saw them she clutched her skirts tightly. Miss Oris, she said, her voice a squeak. It is after hours. The children are... Has anything happened? Snapped Oris. Has anyone come here since we left? What? Stammered Hyla. Oris went to her and gripped her shoulder. Has anyone else come? Where's Matron Fleda? Upstairs, said Hyla. She retired just after you. Oris turned from her to the others. Where would they be? Why wouldn't... Flip's eyes shot wide. Oris. There was a flash and then a glow as Oris's amulet erupted in light. It outshone the lamps in the hallway, casting all their faces in a stark relief of blue light and black shadow. Hyla's terrified face was ethereal and twisted in the glow. Go fetch Matron Fleda, said Oris, at once. Hyla hesitated only a moment before nodding and running for the stairs. Sylvan slammed the front door shut and threw its bolt in place. She and Oris stood to either side of the door, hands on their blades. Flip ran to a window in the corner of the room. He peeled back the curtain just a hair to watch the street outside. There they waited in breathless silence for a long moment. Oris kept glancing impatiently at the hallway where Hyla had disappeared, anxious for Fleda to come. But the matron had not made her way down before Flip hissed, "Someone coming." "No, more than one." "Colors?" said Sylvan. "None," said Flip, "likely hiding them in the city." Sylvan nodded, and then there came a knock. Oris and Sylvan looked at each other. Sylvan tossed her head towards the door. Oris shrugged. Sylvan sighed and opened her mouth to speak, but Oris forestalled her with a raised finger. "Sound like Hyla," she mouthed. Sylvan nodded. "Good eve," said Sylvan in a higher, thinner voice than her own. "I am afraid the orphanage is closed until morning." "My apology for troubling you," said a voice through the door. Oris did not recognize it. "I serve a nobleman, the captain of the mayor's own personal guard." His daughter was killed in the war brewing with Dulmoon. He wishes to adopt to heal the hole left in his heart, and he sent me here to make arrangements for a visit at first light. Sylvan pointed to Oris's sword. Oris drew it slowly, sending no whisper from its scabbard. In the morning is fine, said Sylvan. She spoke quietly in her false, mousy voice. Even Oris had trouble making out the words. Eh, what is that? Said the voice through the door. The morning fine then, sir, said Sylvan, still more quietly. There came the shifting of feet outside. The man's voice sounded closer. He had pressed his ear to the wood. Speak up, I cannot hear you. Shunk! Oris drove her blade straight through the door. When she pulled it back, it was slick with blood. There came the sound of a body falling outside. Many shouts erupted in the street. Flip looked over at them, grinning. We've kicked the anthill now. Stop grinning. Stop grinning and help us bar this door, said Oris. They seized the furniture from the front drawing room and began piling it up. Oris did a quick run around the orphanage, making sure the side and back doors were locked as well. She took the opportunity to peer through the windows, confirming what she had already feared. Shades surrounded the building in numbers, though most of them seemed to be concentrated towards the front. But there were still too many to the side and rear to break through before they were converged upon. Before they would be converged upon. By the time she returned to the entryway, Fleda was just arriving. Too, some curious children had begun to emerge from their dormitories, drawn by the shouting outside and the commotion in the halls. Attendants tried to shoo them back to bed, but it was a futile attempt. Oris lost herself for a moment as she looked upon them. Had she ever really been that small, that young? She could not believe it, but she supposed it had to be true. Aresiat, snapped Fleda, what in the dark below have you brought here? Oris felt a lurch in her stomach, just as she had felt so often when she was a child under the matron's gaze. Over Fleda's shoulder, she saw several children look at each other with wide eyes and nervous grins at hearing the matron speak such an oath. Shades have come here, said Oris. They've come for me, but they won't hesitate to harm you and the children as well. Fleda's eyes went wide, looking even wider through her thick spectacles. Shades, like the ones that attacked the seat? Yes, what under the sky do they want with you? Oris grimaced. That is an increasingly long story and an unimportant one right now. The only thing that matters is gathering the children. We're going to figure out a way to get you all out of here. We're going to get you all out of here, but you have to be ready. Lifemage. Everyone froze. The booming voice from outside seemed to shake the floor. Oris felt a terrible pit in her gut. That was Barrick's voice. Fleda stared at Oris in fear. You're trapped, called Barrick. We have you surrounded. Come and surrender yourself to us. If you do not, you will have the blood of these innocents on your hands. The air fell to silence. Oris's mind whirled, trying to think of a way out of this. Sylvan was taking deep breaths, her eyes half closed. Aresiat, hissed Fleda. Whatever mess you have brought here, take it away at once. The children. I know, all right, said Oris. Give me a moment. She turned and stalked a few paces off, motioning Sylvan and Flip to come with her. They drew together to speak quietly, but over their shoulders, Oris could see Fleda staring daggers straight into her. She felt a sickness clawing at her stomach, nauseating her. She dragged her gaze away from Fleda to Sylvan and Flip. I'm not going to let anything happen to the children, she said. Does anyone have a brilliant idea? Because I'm not seeing a choice other than trying to fight our way through them. Maybe we could try to break through the back, said Sylvan. There will be fewer of them when we might be able to create a gap for the children to flee through. Oh, come now, said Flip, looking at her as if she was foolish. Hey, buddy, good morning. You gonna hang out in here until we go?
Yeah.
Okay. Feel free to sit down if you want, or you can just walk, or stand, rather. He doesn't really mean to let the children leave even if Oris does surrender herself, not even if she dies willingly without a fight. What, said Oris, why not? I wouldn't if I were him, said Flip with a shrug. I'd not want word of this or your death to reach the seat. Why do you think he slaughtered everyone at the inn where we were staying? The High King has no idea where we are. No one does. I'd want to keep it that way. Let Enelin stew, thinking you vanished. Expend more resources trying to find you after she's already stretched thin with Dulmoon to the east. You'd kill children to achieve that end, said Oris. Flip gave her a hard look. Of course I wouldn't, but they would. They already did. We were all there on the seat. They did not kill the children. The tone of Sylvan's voice sent thin, icy fingers of fear sliding down Oris's spine. She spoke in a hopeless monotone with none of her fiery anger behind it. She was not looking at either of them. Her eyes were boring into the opposite wall as though she was looking at some far-off vision invisible to everyone else. What do you mean, said Flip. I heard they left no one alive. They did not kill the children, but they did not leave them either, said Sylvan. They took them. They dragged them off alive, just as that woman said in the birchwood. At last her eyes seemed to focus, and she looked at Oris. But there was still no animation in them, no spark. I may have something, she said. What, said Oris. It can't be a good idea the way you're looking. Sylvan ignored that and went to Fleda and the attendants. Do you have a length of sturdy rope? Fleda blinked, but she seemed to know better than to waste time with questions, and she motioned sharply to Hyla, who ran to a nearby closet. She pulled from it a rope about 10 feet long. That will do, said Sylvan. Flip, over here. She led Flip down the hallway that led to the dormitory and the stairs. Oris waited only a moment before following a few paces behind. What's the plan, she said. Something like the river trick in the birchwood? I hope it's less cold and wet. She stopped as Sylvan leaned in and whispered something in Flip's ear. Oris strained to hear, but she did not reach them before Sylvan pulled away. Flip grinned. Oh, that's hilarious. She'll hate it. You shall have to go first, said Sylvan. Of course. Oris scowled, folding her arms. What in the dark below are you two talking about? Still grinning, Flip turned to her. He placed a hand on her shoulder. My darling, dearest one, he said. You'll understand one day, and mayhap even forgive us. Oris's eyes shot wide. The lightning rocked through her. Every muscle seized, her limbs twitching. Sylvan struck quickly. One punch deep in Oris's gut doubled her over, and then both clenched fists crashed into the back of her head. Oris fell to the stone floor. What under the sky are you doing? Cried Fleda. She moved forwards, but Hyla restrained her, fear in her eyes. Oris was dimly aware of Flip and Sylvan dragging her to the base of the stairs. Sylvan took the rope she had been given and bound Oris's wrists to the banister. The knots were tight enough to pierce the veil of confusion and pain that had clouded Oris's mind. Sylvan straightened and turned to Fleda. I do not have as much time to explain this as I wish I did, but Oris is more important than you can possibly imagine. The survival of Underrealm itself depends upon her, so Flip and I are going to go out there, and we are going to distract the ones pounding at your door. Once that happens, and not an instant before it happens, you will cut Oris free. From her boot she drew a dagger, the same she had once used to carve the tattoo from Enfil's neck, and placed it in Fleda's shaking hand. Then you will get Oris out of here. We should pull most of them from the back of the building. But there may be one or two left when you run out the back. Oris can deal with them easily. No, groaned Oris. No, stop, please. Flip and Sylvan both looked to her, their eyes wide. Dark below, she's already coming out of it, said Flip. What a demon. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. Sylvan whirled on Fleda, her voice urgent now. Do you understand me? This is the only way you and the children survive. The shades will hunt you down otherwise to keep word of this from reaching the High King's seat. This is your only chance. No, cried Oris. She thrashed at the rope, holding her to the banister. But her muscles were still weak, and she was too well tied. She thrashed harder, grunting and then screaming. She placed one foot against the wall and gave a mighty pull. The wood creaked. We'd better go before she gnaws her own arm off, said Flip. Do you understand, said Sylvan. Fleda's fingers tightened on the dagger. I do, she said flatly. I suppose I am grateful. Flip and Sylvan took a step closer to Oris. She stopped thrashing against the rope, her chest heaving with ragged breaths, and stared up at them in fury. Listen, said Flip, don't stay mad at us forever, will you? You'll understand when you're a bit older. Go to the dark below, spat Oris, and then please yourself once you're there. Flip's smile only widened. Then Sylvan stepped forwards. Oris could see the torment in her eyes, the grief, and under it all a faint streak of hope. We have to, she said, her voice frighteningly small and quiet. You are the only one of us who truly matters. Her hand stretched out, reaching for Oris, but Oris kicked up at her, and Sylvan drew back her hand as if from a striking serpent. Don't touch me, snarled Oris. Don't you dare touch me if the next thing you're going to do is walk away. She yanked again at her bindings, and the wood of the banister squealed in protest. Tears sprang from Sylvan's eyes. Dimly, Oris realized it was the first time she had seen Sylvan truly weep. She had not even cried when she found out about Jordel's death. Over her shoulder, Flip was still wearing his splitting grin, but Oris knew him well enough to see the hurt beneath it. You'll regret that sooner than later, said Flip. Honestly, my love, remember what I said. Try not to hate us both forever, won't you? You've been nothing but the highest of delights, mostly. He put a hand on Sylvan's arm and pulled her gently away. Sylvan never stopped looking back over her shoulder at Oris, not even as she vanished around the corner and out of sight. Dark take you, screamed Oris as her tears began to fall. Dark take you both, you cowards. I hope he does it slow, and I hope you're both miserable at the end. And then she collapsed, her whole body limp, the ropes digging into her wrists and marrow-deep sobs keeping her from saying anything more. Sylvan paused just inside the front door, Flip at her side. She could hardly see, the world was so blurry. She realized at last that she was crying. There you are.
reminder that we're leaving
I
very
know.
soon.
I know. I'm hoping to finish this chapter in the next one. Knock it off. Family-friendly stream. You want to say hi?
It is
Yeah.
Bode.
Nyx, Lady Temeraire, Bodegazilla.
Ooh, Lady Temeraire. What's that from? I like that word. Temeraire?
It's a fantasy book series.
Lady Temeraire. I need to look that up. Just the name makes me want to read it.
It's a good series. I actually need to. I think I might have read it when I was younger, but I don't remember anything about it. So I need to either read it or reread it. But either way, I'm basically going to be experiencing it for the first time.
I like experiencing things for the first time.
Megan Robinson. This is a family for. You're going to get me banned from Twitch.
I'm talking about the book series.
Uh-huh.
The book series. You know, honestly, I say most of this stuff to get this reaction.
God damn.
I love seeing his reaction when he freaks out on me. I do it in person with friends as well. Sometimes, though.
Sometimes you don't quite realize what you're saying.
Yeah.
The
Story for another time.
The other day. Hey, buddy. What's up?
I do suffer from foot and mouth syndrome. Let me see those pants.
Des.
Des, I want to make sure you match.
All right. Can I have my office back?
Yeah. Come on. Let me have.
All right. Back to work. God damn it. Flip at her side. She could hardly see. The world was so blurry. She realized at last that she was crying, a sensation even more unfamiliar to her than laughter. With the back of her hand, she scrubbed furiously at her eyes. Flip put a hand on her shoulder. She blinked through the tears to meet his gaze. He only smiled at her sadly. She'll understand, said Flip. She already does, though she can't admit it. We have more pressing things to attend to, Sylvan choked out. How do we play this? Flip sighed. Well, they have that dark damned wizard, and she's strong. That means my usefulness will be limited to keeping her magic away from us. If I can get the upper hand on her, I may be able to do more, but even if not, you're decent enough with those swords. The real problem is that once they realize Oris isn't with us, they're going to try to find out why. Then we do not give them time to react, said Sylvan. I will keep Beric busy, and you do your best to keep everyone else from encircling me and cutting me down. A fine plan, said Flip brightly. I believe it may even last a minute or two. Oh, minutes don't exist. Let us hope that is enough for Oris to get the children out as well as herself, said Sylvan. We shall make it last as long as we can. Flip laughed suddenly, long and loud. Sylvan's brow furrowed as she looked upon him, but he only shook his head. I can't believe I'm about to die, he said, and die fighting beside a mystic in the midst of the most important conflict to befall Underrealm in my lifetime, in many lifetimes. This is everything I've never wanted, all my life. The tone gets lowered even further. This is everything I've never wanted. All my life I've tried to avoid politicking and enjoy my life. It's hard to... Tried to avoid politicking and enjoy myself. It's hard to imagine a scenario farther away from that dream. It's hard to imagine being farther away from that dream than I am now. Further. Yeah. That brought a savage grin to Sylvan's face. I never, not once, imagined I would live this long. For a long time I hoped to die, and then I thought death was always around the corner. Her gaze drifted... I never, not once, imagined I would live this long. For a long time I hoped to die, and then I thought death was always around the corner. Her gaze drifted back down the south hallway in the direction that Oris lay. Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, I got my directions right. What do you know? Her gaze drifted back down the south hallway in the direction that Oris lay. It was only recently that I thought there might be another way, a longer road before the end. Flip's grin faded, becoming something melancholy. I know you're a good person. Sylvan blinked. What? I know you're a good person, repeated Flip. You may walk beside redbacks, but you do it to make the world better. I won't stand with them, but I'm not trying to fix anything either. May if there are some folk out there, better folk than either of us, who manage to do both at once. But it was wrong of me to say that my way was any better than yours. That made Sylvan smirk. You may underestimate yourself, for here you stand now, rejecting my order entirely and fighting to save the world at the same time. Mayhap you had the right of it all along. Now it was Flip who looked back to where Oris's sobs could still faintly be heard down the hallway. I'm not doing it for anyone but her, he said softly. Neither am I, thought Sylvan. But even now, even at the end, she could not say the words, and then she forgot the thought entirely as Flip reached out and pulled her into an embrace. For a moment she froze, and then slowly her arms encircled him as well, pulling him tight. Then Flip pushed her back and gently slapped her cheek. All right, it's time. Are you ready? I have been ready, said Sylvan. Mage light sprang into Flip's eyes, and he grinned at her. I'll tell you true, if the bards don't sing songs about us, I'll come up from the darkness below and kill them myself. I'll be beside you then, too, said Sylvan. She threw open the door, and they ran screaming out into the street. Oris heard the front door slam up. When that scene gets shot, I wanna totally mirror the last shot of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Like, absolutely, just completely steal the composition, the body positions, and everything. Like 100%. You did not miss story time with Elmo, Vale. We have not done that today. That was a yesterday thing. Oris heard the front door slam open, heard Flip and Sylvan give battle cries as they rushed outside. She screamed with them, but hers was thin and pained, a cry of anguish that continued as she heard blades clashing in the street. I mean, I am but a simple man. She curled into a ball and pressed her knees against the wall, then used her legs to try again to wrench the banister out. It gave ever so slightly, but not nearly enough. Whoever had built this place had not built it to withstand a siege, but they had built it to withstand many generations of children, and that was almost the same thing. That's one of my favorite lines in the book. Oris could break free given time, but time was the one thing she did not have. That is correct. Or she could break free given time, but she had no time. Time is the one thing she did not have. It's just a bit of a cliche. Fleta, she begged. Fleta, please cut me loose, please. I have to save them. I can't stay here, please. Fleta looked sternly down at her. The blade was still in her hand, but she was hanging back, out of Oris's reach. They are giving their lives to save yours, Oresiat. I do not know what any of this is about, but I know that should mean something to you. I will not free you until you promise not to be a fool. I have more than just your life to think of. I need you to protect the children once we get them out of here. You don't understand, growled Oris. That is my family. I lost one family already in this life. I can't lose another. I can't. I won't survive it, Fleta. I don't want to. Let me go, and then you can take the children. They won't care about you. They won't chase you if they've got me. Please. The children had finally begun to grasp the danger they were in, and the younger ones were beginning to cry. Some of the older children in the faculty went to hold them and give whatever sparse comfort they could. Beside Fleta, Hyla was looking nervously towards the front entrance of the orphanage. Matron, should we not? Dark, take it, Oresiat, snapped Fleta. For once in your life, listen. Listen to people who know better than you. Stop needing to be right. Something inside Oris broke. It was not the snap of a restraining leash, but the collapse of a pillar holding up a building. She sagged down against the wall, no longer thrashing against the rope. Fleta was right. Oris had said as much to Sylvan and Flip less than an hour ago. She thought of all the times she had to know best. She had to do it her own way. She could never listen to anyone else once she had made up her mind. When her amulet had been taken, she had gone very nearly feral, breaking every rule and never stopping until she got it back. And the punishments that followed were 10 times worse than they would have been otherwise. Disobeying the High King to chase death itself across Sylvan. And then when she faced it at last... When she confronted Barrack and saw the sickly energy around him that made her want to retch, there was nothing inside her to answer it, only that pit in her stomach, that emptiness. She felt it now, swelling through her, threatening to envelop her. Nothing at all. She gave herself to it. She let go and she sank into the void. Or no, not a void, not an emptiness, not a pit or a hole at all. This was not darkness, this was not absence. This was an ocean, an endless depth of something cleaner than the purest water, still as winter air. She thought of Barrack again, of the crawling in her skin at the sight of him, and she let the energy swell around her, into her, and she calmed. The fear vanished. She had never been empty at all. It had never been a hole inside of herself, not a space to be filled. It was her. It was what made her. True emptiness was loss. It was the loss of her amulet, seeing it dangle in Fletta's hand. It was Flip and Sylvan saying farewell forever and trying to convince her it was for the best, taking the choice away from her, love in their hearts but still trying to control her, and still trying to take away that which was hers. Hers. It is mine, she had told Fleta when she was a child. Mine. This you shall not take from me. When had she closed her eyes? She opened them now and looked up at Fleta. The matron flinched and drew back, as did the children and faculty around her. The room. Something was wrong with the room. The light was brighter. The colors were sharper. It seemed to be a familiar sensation, but Oris could not place it. Then she remembered the seat, when Sylvan had tested her and helped her touch magic for the first time. Oresiat, stammered Fleta. Your eyes. Cut me loose, said Oris. It was neither a request nor a demand. It was a certainty. Then hide the children upstairs. Hyla looked to Fleta uncertainly. Fleta gave her a shaky nod and handed over the knife. Hyla ran forwards and began to saw at Oris's bonds. The Shade brought his axe around in a backhand swing. It was the opening Oris had been waiting for. One of her pommels came up and drove into his armpit. He wrenched to the side with a cry of pain. Sylvan brought the other blade around and hacked halfway through his neck. His body jerked strangely as it tried to remain upright, and then he collapsed to the street. That makes what, 6? She quickly counted the corpses on the street. Only 5. Pity. They had plunged straight into the Shades, who had drawn back in alarm, but once they saw only Flip and Sylvan attacking them, they had surged forwards again. A quick glance told Sylvan that any passers-by had vanished, leaving the street to the combatants. She had to imagine the King's Law had been summoned, but they would not arrive until after this fight was already over. Flip had sidled into the corner of the building while Sylvan had positioned herself in front of both him and the door. Some Shades tried to fire arrows, but Flip was able to do just enough to block the shots while also keeping the Shade Wizard occupied. They could only come for Sylvan 1 or 2 at a time, and that had gone poorly for them so far. But one had fainted and landed a solid blow to Flip's head. It was bleeding. Sylvan had taken cuts from at least 2 swords, or had they been axes? She could not remember, and it did not matter. Barrack had not even joined the fray yet. He stood there behind more of his battle kindred, arms folded, glaring at her. That was fine with Sylvan. "We've got to have given Oris enough time, right?" said Flip quietly as the Shades mustered their courage for another charge. "We have to hope so," said Sylvan. "You're a wildcat in a fight," said Flip. "I thought I should tell you that before either one of us falls." "And you are an adequate wizard." Sylvan shot him a savage grin over her shoulder, and Flip returned it. I love these fucking idiots so much. Clang, the crash of Barrack's sword against his shield made everyone on the street freeze. The Shades looked back to their leader. Barrack pushed forwards through them, shouldering them aside. His gaze never left Sylvan. "Very well," he said. "Consider yourself honored. You have earned a swift end to this pathetic farce." Dark below, cursed Sylvan in her mind. The day she had met Flip and Oris, she had been able to surprise Enfil and end him. She did not have surprise on her side now. The Shades drew back. They formed a sort of half-circle behind Barrack. There was no way to run through them, nowhere to go but back in the orphanage. And then Sylvan saw still more of the Shades appearing, but these were coming from around the sides of the building. They'd been drawn from the perimeter by the fighting at last. She thought she would collapse with relief. There was nothing between the orphanage and escape now. "Go, Oris," she thought. "Go, you beautiful mad fool. Go and survive." "You're awesome. Thanks. You're fine. You're fine." "Go, Oris," she thought. "Go, you beautiful mad fool. Go and survive." But she only smiled up at Barrack and moved to meet him. He came for her hard, trying to end the fight quickly. She had expected that. If this were a different book. Anyway, she had expected that, so she danced. She let her blades meet his when she had to. But for the most part, she merely stepped around his blows, to the side, then back, circling him, keeping one wary eye on the Shades surrounding them. In the crowd, she spotted Dedulin, looking at her in wide-eyed fear. Her lip curled. Exactly. Barrack spun, his sword hissing through the air. Sylvan dropped to one knee to duck it and came up swinging. Barrack's head flew back, but not far enough. The tip of Sylvan's blade slashed straight up his cheek, leaving a thin line of blood but missing the eye. They both stepped back from each other, Barrack growling. But then, even as Sylvan watched, the wound on his cheek slowly stitched itself shut. In a moment it was as though he had never taken the wound. "Your efforts are pointless," said Barrack. "You will not keep me from entering that orphanage. You will only grant me the chance to carve you limb from limb while the Lifemage watches." But he had not noticed his soldiers circling in from around the back of the orphanage. But he had not noticed his soldiers. Yeah. But he had not noticed his soldiers circling in from around the back of the orphanage. Sylvan wanted to grin, but she did not. No need to give him any reason to suspect she had a plan. She was faster than him, but not by much, and he was ever so much stronger. With his master's dark enchantment spurring him on, she could not hope to tire him out and strike him when weakened. All she could do was buy as much time as possible. Barrack went for a bull rush. Sylvan tried to push off the shield and move around him, but he spun to his right when she had expected left. His sword came around and left a long slash down her arm. Sylvan gritted her teeth and drew back, even as Barrack bared his teeth in a grin. Rage boiled up inside her, white hot and insistent. Her breath came faster, her nostrils flaring. Careful, Sylvan, said Flip through gritted teeth. His eyes blazed as he held off a fresh assault from the Shade Wizard. Sylvan answered only with a savage growl. 2 deep breaths, she tried to tell herself, but she could not summon them. And why resist, a part of her mind asked. Let it go, let it rip through you. You could end him and them right now. No, who knew how far away the children were? And Oris, they might be far enough away and they might not. But certainly Flip was too close, not to mention all the other innocents nearby, simply living their lives in Cabris. At least Oris had never had to see that side of her. 2 deep breaths. In, out. She sprang. It surprised Barrack. His blade and shield came up, his actions more instinct than intent. It gave her a hint of an opening. The tip of one blade plunged through the chainmail under his breastplate. Barrack grunted with pain, but then his shield lashed out, slamming into her face. Sylvan reeled back, stars exploding in her vision. Barrack's sword came around. Sylvan managed to get her blade in front of it, but it knocked the sword away to skitter across the cobblestones. Barrack dropped his shield and grabbed her by the throat with his left hand. He lifted her off the ground and plunged his sword through her gut. In a flash of white-hot agony, Sylvan felt one hand's breadth of steel erupt out of her back. Excuse me. She gasped, and fire raced through her lungs. Blood spattered from between her teeth onto Barrack's raised forearm. She could only stare at him without comprehension. Dimly, from the corner of her eye, she saw Flip's look of horror. The pain was excruciating. She was losing focus. Cannot lose focus. Rising to meet the pain came the rage. Cannot let it control me. Be better. Be good enough to let yourself die. Be good enough to deserve her. Ooh, there's a couple lines that just come out of nowhere, don't they? Barrack dropped her.
We gotta go, love.
Okay. Look how close I am.
Okay,
I'm on the last page. Come on, let me go finish. I'll be done in 30 seconds. I love you.
Love you.
Be right there. Barrack dropped her. The street slamming into her body brought a fresh wave of agony. She tried to scream at the hideous sensation of steel sliding back out of her insides, but only a choking groan came out. More blood spattered from her mouth to the stone, joining the pool spreading from her belly. The door of the orphanage slammed open. Sylvan's gaze was already wandering. The thought of focusing on anything was laughable. Yet her head turned, drawn to the open doorway. Dimly, as though through a deepening shroud, she saw Oris. We had a brief Meg sighting. The open door. Yet her head turned, drawn to the open door. And you know what they say. Love is an open door. Yeah, right, Nix? Dimly, as though through a deepening shroud, she saw Oris standing there. No, she moaned weakly. Dark below, no, you were supposed to run. You were supposed to... She froze. Oris's eyes were glowing. It was good. It was good. All right. Like I said, today is a pathetically short stream. I might try to do a second stream later today, but I'm probably going to be exhausted after orientation day at the school. So, yeah. We'll see how it goes. Who are we rating today? Hey, RPG Dinosaur Bob is streaming. Would you look at that?
Hi, welcome to Sonic.
Shut up, Twitch.
2 Sonic
God
cheeseburgers.
damn it. Why? What is love, love? What is love, love? Sylvan and Oris. And Oris. And Flip. Oh. All right. RPG Dinosaur Bob does RPG related stuff right now. It looks like doing some map design. Looks very cool. Go hang out, say hello from me, wish him well, and have a fantastic day. Hopefully hopefully see you all for our second stream later today. If not, certainly tomorrow morning early. Same bat time, same bat channel. And I will catch you all then.
Bye.
New Dungeon Fog tutorial.
And stop for a minute. We're going to turn down the music for now. We're going to turn off the music for a moment. And we're getting raided. That means I have to